I said before the season that I thought the Lions would make the Super Bowl. I still believe that. However, I also believe, which is something I didn't believe before. I don't know if I want to do this one, man. All right, whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, from all around the world, coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, this is the Spit Sports Show. I knew this episode was going to come eventually. The Lions had their first bad loss of the year, and when that happens, because we're flying so high right now, there are obviously going to be these vultures and crows who try to bring us down whenever we have any sort of slip up, not realizing that this is the NFL and the San Francisco 49ers can lose to the Cleveland Browns, and the Kansas City Chiefs, the eventual Super Bowl champions, lost to the Colts last year in overtime. Never forget that. And the Eagles lost to Zach Wilson this year. But of course, as the only team that is flying this high right now, because we're the same old Lions, any one loss, it's the end of the world. Anyways, Thanksgiving was yesterday. I'm from Canada, so it wasn't my Thanksgiving, but it kind of was my Thanksgiving because I have two. I have one Thanksgiving, which is my Canadian Thanksgiving, which is in October, where we eat the turkey. We do all the same stuff you Americans do, but I also kind of celebrate the American Thanksgiving because there's football on all day and I usually take the day off, blah, blah, blah. You don't care about that. I want to get to this Lions game. So listen, I talk a lot in these episodes about trenches play because I get that it's so easy to talk about a Tyreek Hill or an A.J. Brown or someone who's catching a ridiculous amount of yards, catches, touchdowns, all of that, and explain that as the way that they won the game. He played unbelievable. And usually that's true. But it wasn't yesterday in that Lions-Packers game. The Detroit Lions offensive line played the worst game it's played in a year and a half. I don't know exactly why. I definitely have a couple of reasons as to why, but in terms of generally why they played so terribly, I couldn't tell you. We had a rookie in at left guard to start off, but let's be honest, left guard isn't exactly, left tackle or right tackle. It's not the most important position on the offensive line, or even center, which is what I want to talk about mainly. So the Packers weren't really doing anything special with their rushes. Obviously, they rushed really hard, and they were able to crack through the D-line with just basic stunts and regular pressures, but they did a couple of cross blitzes early, which is basically the linebacker, instead of just rushing straight on, he'll go kind of in a loop and attack the other guard instead of the guard he's lined up with. So if he's lined up on the right side, he'd go attack the left guard. If that makes any sense. They did a couple of those early, which seemed to just throw off the entire rhythm of the pass protection. And I have to put a lot of that, in fact, all of it, on Jared Goff and Frank Ragnow. Now listen, Goff's a veteran at this point. He's not a young quarterback who I can kind of take exceptions with his pass protection and identifying mics and all of that. He missed a lot of mics yesterday. And what that means is he has to identify which linebacker is blitzing, which one's holding. He has to communicate that with his center, who's Ragnow, who I thought did a pretty bad job of sliding the line in the right place, making the line wider in certain times. I just didn't think they did a very good job with their pass protection, and the Packers took full advantage of it. They came out with a fire under their butts, man. They played so well, so aggressive. Jordan Love played the single best game of his life. But again, I think all of that would have been negated if we just held up in pass protection. Goff was pressured on nearly half of his dropbacks. That's the first time that's happened to him in nearly a year and a half. And all three turnovers were a direct result of the pressure. Two of them were directly because of that. One of them, it came out of Goff's hand as he was throwing the ball. The other one, he was running and he got the ball knocked out of him. But the only reason he had to scramble was because he was under pressure in the first place. And the second one, or the third one, I should say, it happens. Ball got knocked out of his hands again, whatever. You can't really do much about that. But all three were a direct result of that pressure. So I have a confession. And all that I owe you guys in this show, in this Spit Sports media empire that I'm trying to build, that was cringe as hell, but in this world, all that I owe you is my genuine, authentic truth and opinion. If I believe it, I'm going to tell you guys. If I don't believe it, I'm not going to pretend like I believe something else just to get a click, whatever. I said before the season that I thought the Lions would make the Super Bowl. I still believe that. However, I also believe, which is something I didn't believe before, I also believe we could not win a playoff game this year because our highs are so high. Our offense is so explosive when Goff's protected, and we're able to use those playmakers and get them out into space. But when they're not, Goff obviously doesn't do well with hands and guys in his face. And if that O-line doesn't hold up like it did against the Packers yesterday, who had so many injuries, their top corner was out, top pass rusher. Rashawn Gary obviously played the game of his life, and more respect to him. But sorry, Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark played the game of his life. My apologies. But if they don't block those Packers, like imagine what's going to happen when they play the Niners with Chase Young and Bosa, or the Eagles with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough playing against even better pass rushes than that. So they have to figure that out. D-line was brutal. To talk about that side of the ball, I thought our secondary played fine, as well as they could have, but Love had so much time, and it was so easy for him to get out of the pocket and create even more time. That, what do you want the secondary to do? Like, Joseph tried his best. Jacobs got burned on that one touchdown by Watson, but like other than that, they played okay. It just stinks, man. But like I said to start this off, every team has a bad loss every now and then. Do I think this is the end of the world? Absolutely not. We're still 8-3, which is the best record of any Lions team up to this point in my entire life. So you're not going to hear me complaining and panicking. However, I will say their floor is a lot lower than I thought it was at first. Their ceiling is still as high as it's ever been. Cowboys, Commanders. This one's really, really easy to explain. The Cowboys at home, if they are playing a bad team, they will wipe the floor with them. We've seen that against the Giants multiple times. But what I want to talk about more than just the game yesterday is this whole Dak Prescott MVP conversation. Okay, listen. He has beaten up on bad teams. All 8 of his wins have been against losing records, including a 1-9 Carolina team, a 2-4 Giant. Like, he's played bad teams. And when he plays those bad teams, he has played really well. However, MVPs in all sports are about MVP moments. You know what I mean? Think about in the NBA. Like when Embiid plays Giannis late in the season and they're like tight for the MVP. Whoever outplays the other in that game is probably going to have a bit of a step up. And in MVPs in previous years, you know, Mahomes had his 6 touchdown game in his MVP season. You know, Tom Brady closed out with 5 touchdowns. There's moments, MVP moments. Are we really going to talk about Dak Prescott against the Washington Commanders as his MVP moment? Look, I get that the MVP field is as low as it's ever been, or as weak as it's ever been, I should say. But dude, you can't lose to every single opponent with a winning record and expect to win the MVP. To me, it just doesn't compute. If you don't have a good O-line, you can't beat the Cowboys because they can rush for and get there every single time. And that's what happened to Sam Howell yesterday, who is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL and could be in NFL history after the season. Congrats. You beat up on a bad team with a bad O-line. Great job. But this proved nothing to me. I still think the Lions are a better team than the Cowboys are. Like, I really do. When they play each other, I think in week 17, we'll find out. But the Lions have the O-line to deal with the Cowboys, and their offense is obviously more explosive with way more weapons. Cowboys' defense is better, but I think that's a toss-up. You can't put Dak number 1 in the MVP conversation when he hasn't beaten a team with a winning record. Sorry, you're disqualified. Jalen Hurts is my MVP right now if you're going to give it to a quarterback, but if you're not, and you're not going to make it a quarterback exclusive award, my MVP right now is Myles Garrett. 7-3 Cleveland Browns team with a destitute situation at quarterback, and they're still winning games. Good for them. Touch quickly on Seahawks 49ers. To be honest with you, this one's really simple. The 49ers just have a better team than the Seahawks do overall, and I think you saw that really early when it seemed like any play that the Niners would call would work, even if it didn't work. What I mean by that is there would be a couple of just dives to Christian McCaffrey where, like, you'd think the Seahawks had just bottled it up. 2 guys would get penetration, but then he'd just make a quick move to the outside. Trent Williams would get a key block, or Debo would make a play. Like, they would just always get out of their bad plays by their playmakers being better than Seattle's playmakers. And the 49ers, to me, are still the best team in the NFC in terms of their roster. I still don't have complete trust in their quarterback when it comes to playoff time, but I could be totally wrong about that. The Niners are terrifying. And I hate to put a game into such a simple box as this team was flatly better than this team. But to be honest, when I watched the game, that's all I thought. I'm like, oh yeah, they're just better. They run the ball better. They throw the ball better. They play better defense. They're better coached. Like all of it. I think the Niners just proved once and for all that they have the best roster in football right now. And the Seahawks couldn't keep up with it, especially with Geno Smith playing as poorly as he has these last couple weeks. I'm not saying Geno Smith is turning back into what he was before he was at the Seahawks. He's still an above-average quarterback, but he's definitely not the Geno Smith from last year, where some people had him in the MVP conversation after about week 9. Not that Geno Smith anymore. Anyways, as always, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. Bit of a quick one today. I'm sorry if I sounded a little sick during the show. I've just got, runny nose, cold. It's cold here in Canada. I've got to wear a sweater in my room nowadays. It kind of sucks. But anyways, please let me know what you thought. What do you guys think is going to happen this weekend? Do you guys think the Lions could still win the Super Bowl? What do you guys think is the MVP race right now? Who's leading? Who's second? Give me all of that stuff. I want to know. As always, thank you so much for your continued support. I love you guys so much. Thank you. And I will see you in the next one. Peace out.